Hello, and welcome to Unscheduled Flights, exploring the realms of inspiration, innovation, and creativity. I'm your host, Ambika Waters, and I welcome you to this podcast and hope you find it as interesting as I do.
Hi, I'm Ambika Waters, and I'm here today with Dr. Harry van der Zee, who is a homeopathic physician in the Netherlands. And Harry runs a wonderful program in Africa, 14 countries in Africa, for health and development. And he's here today to talk to us about his project. Hello, Harry, in the Netherlands.
Hi, Amika. Very happy to be with you and with your audience.
Thank you.
Wonderful.
So would you like to tell us what you're doing in Africa and how long you've been there, how your project started, and what kind of treatment you're offering people?
Yeah. Perhaps best would be to start with just a little bit of history of how this started. And this work actually started with the late Peter Chappell, who was a UK colleague. And Peter was quite a maverick kind of person, very intelligent and very out-of-the-box thinker.
Yeah.
And Peter has actually brought homeopathy to many Eastern European countries, like a dozen or something like that. You know, he would earn some money in the UK, fly off, go to the places where the help was needed most, treat people, train people, move back home, then send others to continue the school that he started there, and he moved to another place and started something new. And at some point he felt like, well, I've done enough now. He was about 60 or something like that. And that's when he met Amma G, the hugging Amma that people may know about. And he received a hug, and he felt that ever since he felt some kind of urge to go to Africa and see whether homeopathy had anything to offer for HIV/AIDS in Africa. And in those days in Africa, there was just simply no treatment.
That's right.
There was just nothing. Antiretroviral drugs, which are quite available now, although with the withdrawing of US aid is also at risk again. But anyway, he went and started treating patients one by one, seeing pretty good results, but realized like, I can take them one by one, but there are 28 million, that was around the figure they thought at that time. And I want something that could basically help all of them. And so he was looking for one single remedy that he could give to each and every patient. Now, normally speaking, in homeopathy, we individualize for each and every person because everyone is unique, has a unique history, etc. But a condition like this, an epidemic disease, is not a disease of the individual. It's a disease of the collective. So if you look at the way the disease expresses within the collective, and you can find a remedy for that, you can basically give it to everyone with the same condition. And so he took like 70 cases, took their symptoms together as if one person, looked in the materia medica, as we call it, and the whole range of homeopathic remedies which were available. And he couldn't find that one single remedy that he was looking for. Now, being Peter, that meant like, if I ask a question, I know there is an answer. And so somehow, something whispered, I guess, gave him the idea that he could ask for it. And based on some shamanic work he had done in the past, he kind of contacted what he called an intelligent being, a loving being, and asked, can you put what we call the simillimum, the remedy for HIV/AIDS in Africa, inside this bottle? Having no idea whether that could work, but that's what he did. He gave it to some patients, and by the time they came back, he was kind of making a jive on the road because they were all not only better, they were extremely well. And basically, that has been the start of what we have now called PC remedies or source resonances. Because once you could do this for HIV/AIDS, you could do it also for malaria and many other conditions.
Right.
And so after I had witnessed a case on a conference that was I was struck by lightning looking at that case, because this was a case of a homosexual man, not an African man, an American man, who was treated by a colleague for suicidal depression. Nothing worked. And because I was editor of Homeopathic Links, an international journal, and we had already published a bit about Peter's experiences in Africa. This was around 2002, 2003. And so the homeopath thought, well, if I can't treat this man for his depression, perhaps I can do something for his HIV/AIDS. So he gave him this remedy that we now call PC1. After taking this remedy, this man had a complete transformation, a complete awakening. And the bottom line was that there, where he could not imagine anyone would ever love him, he was overflowing with love and in tears was telling, like, I love everything, everyone. It's phenomenal. So when I saw that, I was like,
Yeah.
because within a split second, I kind of recognized what this meant. HIV/AIDS is being, you infect another through sexuality. When a relationship is not based on respect, mutual care, and love, you can infect another. If these ingredients are there within a relationship, you don't infect another. It's as simple as that, and you don't allow yourself to be infected. So I realized that this remedy wasn't just covering the symptoms of the disease, it was going to the very root of it. So when I saw that, I asked Peter, well, is there a place in Africa where you've been long enough that I can go there, interview some patients and see how they're doing? And so that's what I did. And together with my colleague, Corey Hiwat, we went together. We interviewed some 60 patients. And I remember telling her, like, it's easier to treat HIV/AIDS in Africa than a running nose in Holland. These results were amazing.
Yeah.
I still see this woman telling me how half a year ago she was hospitalized weighing 26 kg, about to die. A family member brought her the remedy, and now she was sitting there, 52 kg, totally fine.
Wow.
Cases like that we have seen throughout the years in thousands and thousands of cases. And the same remedy is still as successful as it was then. That's in short the story.
A very impressive story, Harry. Very, very impressive.
Yeah, this work is saving so many lives and improving the lives of so many people.
Yeah.
And then we're only talking about HIV/AIDS.
Right.
Because we soon enough realized that actually malaria is a much bigger health issue
Yes, it
in
is.
sub-Saharan Africa.
Yes, it is.
And as homeopath, we know that malaria is related to, let's say, frustrated goals. You're frustrated in what you want to achieve in life. And that's in short a bit the story of all those aid organizations that went to Africa from the 60s onwards. And those people that went around that time are now writing their books about how frustrated they are about not being able to manifest their plan for someone else.
Correct.
So this malaria remedy that Peter created also worked consistently well. But then we realized, like, in homeopathy, we know that with an epidemic disease, if the remedy can treat the condition, it can also be used to prevent it.
Yeah.
And I did the first test of that in the Congo, in the province of Kivu in the east, the very province where now all this fighting has been going on in the last
I've been there,
couple of weeks.
Harry. I was
Yeah.
in Kivu. Yeah.
Yeah. And so there was a school with 600 children, most of them orphans. They had lost their parents to the war. They had lost their parents to HIV/AIDS. And so I treated children, I treated teachers, and somehow the idea came up, what if we now give all the children this PC malaria remedy and see what happens? And so when I was back in Holland, after some 3 months or something like that, I got an email. Should we continue with this? Because we haven't seen malaria now for a long, long time.
Oh my.
Oh
My.
my. That was like, whoa.
Yeah.
Next experience in Malawi, where I was staying for a couple of months to start a clinic. And there was a daycare center for toddlers, and they lost 5 children every year due to malaria. And I mean, you've lived in Africa, so you know, like, it's totally normal for a family to lose 1 child to malaria. On average, that's what happens.
Yeah.
And this daycare center lost 5 every year. So we started to give this to the children. No more children dying of malaria.
Oh, wow.
Wow.
Hmm.
Then there was a village also in the Congo again, where someone we had trained made the remedy available to the population. Soon enough, he was called by the director of the Red Cross Hospital, who showed him that their hospital admissions for malaria had gone down by 95% for a couple of months already. And the director said, how do we pay our nurses now?
Oh my. Ooh,
Yeah.
the politics of medicine, huh?
Well, yeah, I mean, I understand he needs to pay his nurses, but it showed how effective it was also
That's
in that.
extraordinary.
Yeah.
Malaria was, when I lived in Lubumbashi in Zaire, it was endemic. It was endemic. And people, Africans and Europeans, were dying from blackwater fever, which is just a very acute form of malaria. And I mean, to see a mosquito in your home was like a death sentence. It was just, the vigilance of keeping your house mosquito free it was work. And if you heard a mosquito bzzz in the night,
Yeah.
all lights went on, the shoes came up, it was something. It was something, but it was also you're right, the first AIDS and then malaria. But what a wonderful, wonderful story, Harry, about this very effective way of treating. It's extraordinary.
It's really amazing. Yeah, we started making it available to schools because it's especially children which are vulnerable.
Yeah.
And through schools you can reach large numbers with a small effort. And so to prevent a child from getting malaria costs us by now less than 10 cents per child per year.
Very.
I know, it's crazy.
That's
It's totally
amazing.
crazy, but it's true. And so what we have seen, like in those areas where malaria is endemic, you can find schools where 15, 20, I've even seen 30, up to 40% of the children on average being absent in school.
Yeah.
You start giving this remedy, and within a couple of weeks, it goes back to a normal 1 or 2%, and it stays that way year in, year out. And then in most African countries, they have state exams. So you can also follow up how they are doing in their academic performance. And soon enough, and it's totally logical, as they are now healthy and they're in school, they start to perform better. So we've seen schools that didn't used to send any kid almost to secondary school because they were not performing well enough, could
Right.
now send all of them. Schools, I mean, it's like living in a true miracle or in an answered prayer when you're there and you hear those stories. It's hard to imagine this to be true, but schools that report, like the hospital director came and they said, for the last 6 months, we haven't seen any kid of your school for malaria. And normally a school would send like 5 or 6 or 7 every day. And the head of the school explained, well, they're no longer sick. And if one gets sick, we give it an extra dose and then it lies down in the shade for an hour. And then soon enough, it comes back in class.
The wonder of homeopathy.
Um,
Oh,
it's each and every time I've gone to Africa, I've experienced something new that I thought, is this also possible? Yeah. And I think it has to do with that the way these remedies have been created by Peter
from source. From source.
from source.
Yeah.
And source he initially recognized as something benevolent, intelligent, and loving outside of him.
Yeah.
But soon enough, he realized it's neither inside nor outside.
That's right.
It's the source of everything. And so if you have the purity and the stillness to, as it were, make a little prayer there,
Yeah.
then it manifests the way we see in Africa.
How beautiful. How truly beautiful. Yes, I've used his remedies for a long, long time, and he was very helpful to me many years ago when I started a program for autism here in my community, and he was very, very helpful. I miss him. I miss being able to call him or have a Zoom conversation with him about work. He was you're right, he was way out of the box. He was, but
Yeah.
what wonderful work you're doing. So how can we help you, Harry? What is it you need to support you continuing this work in Africa?
Yeah. Well, and like out of the box. Homeopathy for many is already out of the box.
Yeah, me.
What we do for many homeopaths, this is also out of the box.
It is.
And so, although we are extremely cost effective, we are all volunteers, myself included, our African teams, and there's over 1,000 volunteers doing this kind of work.
Oh,
They
wonderful.
work as volunteers, but of course they have their expenses like airtime or they need to travel somewhere or so, and that's what we try to cover. And they reach over 1 million people by now. And even although they do this for 10 cents a person or less, it still means that it multiplies when you reach 1 million. And like in this first quarter of this year, they're already up to 465,000 or something like that. So this year it will even grow further and it grows exponentially.
Yeah.
But it also means that our need for the funds to be able to support them also is growing. And we can't get funds through the regular means. I've tried dozens of times, and we're just so much out of the box of the regular medical and even out of the homeopathic medical that we need those people to support us that have an open mind and an open heart and feel connected to this kind of work and are open to it.
Okay. So for our listeners, we have Harry's website and place that you can contact him and check out his website so that you can get an address for making a donation or volunteering, anything that will help this organization stay on its feet and do good in the world. Have you thought about going into South America at all? Or malaria is a big problem, and so is HIV/AIDS worldwide.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, there is someone of our team who's involved with South America, and there has been a project also in Honduras, and there's some things have been happening there. But I can tell you that Africa by now, or until now, is quite big enough for us, and even
It's plenty
sub-Saharan Africa.
big. Africa is plenty big.
And
I
because
agree.
even if we reach 1 million people a year, we're still only scratching the surface of what is required.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah. But my feeling is that what we are doing, especially with this malaria prevention, is a real game changer for Africa, because
Yes,
a whole
it is.
generation of children can now move on healthy and happily towards secondary school and may be able to kind of escape the poverty trap that their parents have been in.
Yeah.
And I mean, can you stand another story which is
Go
out of a
ahead, Harry.
box?
Please. I love stories.
Yeah. So Peter, at some point, that's already like 20 years ago, they were talking about we could have something again like the Spanish flu in the 1914, something like that, when worldwide some 20 to 40 million people died. And in a time when the world population was a lot less and people weren't flying all over the place, but still 20 to 40 million people died. And so he realized if an avian flu is coming again or something like it, yes, a remedy can be created for it, but how to get it to the people? And so he realized that the logistics of going to a pharmacy and all of that was not going to work. The pharmacist might be dead, he might be sick or too afraid to open his door or whatever. And so he thought, well, one thing that might still work for quite a bit is the internet. Would it be possible to imprint sound with healing information instead of water like we used to? And so he experimented with that in Africa also, treating some AIDS patients and treating some acute malaria cases. And there was proof of concept that this worked. And although in Africa we kind of kept using the oral remedies because for nurses, doctors, etc., this is what they are used to do, and it works for them. So that's great. But then at some point, Peter came up with something new that we call LEAP, Learning Enhancement Africa Program. And that means that children in schools listen to a little piece of music. It lasts 2 minutes or something like that. It improves the immunity against the full range of kind of conditions that they are exposed to. It relieves trauma of a full range of the kind of traumas they can be exposed to, and it improves their learning skills. So all a school needs is a simple speaker, a USB stick, and play it. And by now there are some 700 schools, or by now it must be 800 because someone is on the road and going from school to school using this. And the reports are similar, but even better than the ones we had with the malaria prevention orally. So the school results are improving, but we see also children that used to be too afraid to ask a question or to answer one. They're rid of these fears. We have heads of schools telling us we no longer use the cane because we don't need it. Heads of schools that tell also our teachers are now much more relaxed because they were also stressed, but they are feeling well now as well.
I had two African orphans who were adopted by one of my clients, and she asked me if I could treat them. And I told her I had lived in Africa and that I had also access to source medicine, which Peter had created. And he's got a lot of resonances in it for Africa. So we had these two boys. They were both the same age. They were 9 when I started treating them. and having trouble learning English. One had been starved, really near to death, and one had seen his family massacred. They were from Ghana. And within months of doing daily resonances for less than 2 minutes a day, these boys started speaking English well. They started assimilating. They learned to love football and baseball and the great American sports. And I get reports from the parents. This was several years ago that I treated these kids. They're now teenagers and they're thriving. They're absolutely thriving. And I never thought about it in terms of a collective of large numbers of people. I treated these kids because I had been in Africa and because I understood some of the problems of Africa. But you're talking about a large group of people getting this medicine through sound. Source medicine, I'm going to put that up on as well as your email address and your website, because source medicine was Peter's creation and has helped so many people. Harry, it's fascinating what you're doing and what you're sharing. And I hope people are listening and paying attention, because this is the future of medicine, I think. I think this is the future for all of us. And it's pretty magnificent what you're doing. I mean, it's miraculous and it's magnificent. And it's so simple. It's so simple that it defies, common sense. It's so simple. God bless Peter and God bless you. You're doing wonderful work. And I hope you get some wonderful results from this, that people will listen and pay attention and find out more about what you're doing and how they can help.
Yeah, well, and if people would just share it with others, make them
Absolutely.
aware of our work, and so we have a wider network of people that would potentially be willing to support us. Yeah.
I think that that's something I ask for every time I send the podcast out, is please pass it on to your network, because that networking is now so effortless with the internet. And there will be people whose lives are touched by this, who want to share. They're going to be missionaries. They're going to be doctors and nurses and teachers, and people who just want to do some good in the world will show up at your doorstep and ask what they can do. And that's my prayer for this. That's my prayer. I love what you're
Very
doing,
welcome.
Harry. I love what you're doing. And it's not really out of the box. I think it is the box itself. It is. It's what we were put here to do. And,
Yeah.
God bless you, Harry, and good luck with this. Good luck.
Yeah. I think one day this will be the box. Yes.
This is the box, Harry. Let's go
It
for
is the
that.
box, but not considered that way yet. Yeah.
Not yet. But
Yeah.
times are changing and people are much more open than they have ever been to
Yeah.
resonance, to color and sound, to solfeggio sounds, to the realm of angels, to good, solid, constitutional homeopathic treatment. It's there. It's
Yeah.
there, and it's helped so many people. But this is a step beyond ordinary life, what you're talking about. It's a step way beyond that. I lived in Africa. I have never seen suffering like that in my whole life. I grew up on the Mexican border in San Diego, California, and we would venture down into Mexico, and my mother was horrified by what she saw. She thought it was the worst thing she'd ever seen. When I went to Africa, I had to laugh at what she thought was horrible, because Africa it carries a brutality and a violence. It's endemic in it. And people have been trying to do good in Africa for a long time. It's interesting what you said about malaria being a disease of frustration, because I saw some people who really had great ideas, deeply frustrated. I remember meeting a French doctor who wanted to take a train through Congo, where he could do surgery on people, and you know, he just couldn't get it together. There's a lot of resistance, there's a lot of politics, there's a lot of bribery and corruption that is just part of the fabric of life. I used to go to the market, Harry, and I would want a tomato, 2 tomatoes or 3 tomatoes, and I'd have to bargain for the tomatoes. It was a half an hour negotiation to get my tomatoes. But yeah,
if you don't bargain, you don't take them serious.
No, that's right. That's right. So this is really magnificent work that you're sharing. Anything more you want to share about what you do?
Well, like what you said, like a lot of violence. So malaria is related also to violence. As homeopaths, we know this. And so, and that's an interesting story also, and also very meaningful for the work we do. At some point in the early years, Peter went to Rwanda to treat AIDS. And so what he saw in each and every case, that all these people were traumatized by the genocide that happened 10 years before.
Yeah, that's right.
And he realized they will not be completely well unless also their trauma is treated. And so he did the same as he did with HIV/AIDS. He took their cases of a whole group, potted them together as if one person, and created a remedy for war and genocide. This remedy has been used in the Congo especially a lot. So when they make malaria prevention available in the Congo, they add war and genocide to it. It's been used in Afghanistan with soldiers in hospitals.
I used it. I used it in Israel. That's where I used it.
Yeah, it's been used in Israel, also as a sound. I remember giving after the horrible attack by Hamas, there was a meeting I had online with Israeli homeopaths who were also working with the traumatized people. And they listened to this war and genocide remedy, and it had a deep impact on them. So, and we've used it for refugees that are in Europe and coming from Syria and places like that. But trauma is underlying a lot of what's going on in the world.
Yes,
and so healing trauma is very essential. So we also make, like, if you have something like a natural catastrophe, whether it's a tsunami or something like that, that resonance is always available on our website. People can just go there and listen to it.
That's good to know. That's wonderful to know. That's worth absolutely noting. Thank you.
And the same we did with COVID, which is still available to either prevent or to treat or to deal with the effects of vaccines that people took.
Right. Harry, it's wonderful talking with you, and that you're so devoted to this program, keeping it alive, keeping it vital, keeping it moving forward. Don't stop. Don't stop. If somebody can donate money, that's well worth it. But your prayers and your good intentions for this program mean a lot to everybody. And that doesn't take anything but a moment to support the goodness that's being done around the world with these very simple remedies, with resonances, and with so many good volunteers too. You need good people, always need good people. I'm tickled to hear this, Harry, because when I think of my 7 years in Africa, and I lived in the country that brought the world HIV/AIDS, there was a hopelessness when I left, a despair about what's going to happen here, what's going to happen with these people, what's going to happen. And you tried not to think. When we got back to Belgium, we went to the Tropical Institute. We had all the tests. Everybody is constantly being tested. But that despair I was there in 1980 to 80, almost 87. And it's there, it's buried in me, that sense of, oh, Africa. But you're telling me there's hope, that there's not only hope, that there's incredible results. Thank you. Thank you.
There's actually, it makes me think of, there's a documentary made by an Israeli documentary maker, A Message of Love and Hope, which is also can be looked at our website. So people might enjoy watching that.
That's good to know
Yeah.
too. Anything else you want to share, Harry, before we say goodbye?
Hmm.
I have a feeling that Peter is
Hmm.
kind of blessing us. That he's up there, he's going, yes, this is good.
Yeah, yeah. Well, Peter's life has definitely been a blessing, and for many, many people. We
Absolutely.
recently did two studies, actually. We did a study on HIV/AIDS, comparing this remedy with the antiretroviral remedies. And this remedy outperformed whatever is available, and
Good.
statistically significantly outperformed.
That's excellent news.
And we did a big study in Bukavu where we followed up the population for 6 years, actually. 1 year before we started the program there, and then we started malaria prevention in a part of the city and not in another part. And so it showed that in 1 year in that city alone, something like 128 lives were saved by malaria prevention. Something around 4,300 hospitalizations had been prevented. And it meant that for every dollar that had been spent in that city for this program, they saved $40 on just healthcare expenses. And then you don't calculate the loss of a life and what that means. It always feels strange to me that they even monetize that. But when you do it, it means that this program is like $1 saves 700 something dollars.
Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, it's very, very effective in many ways.
Yes, indeed. Let's get the word out, Harry, and let's just trust that this is going to go forward and you will have all the support you need. And you'll keep going with this, and you'll keep
Yes.
passing it on to people who can run with it.
Yeah, it's growing in a very beautiful way. And so this network is just expanding and expanding. And just now, someone of our team is in Zambia, where there's a lot of fear because
Yeah.
antiretroviral remedies may no longer be available, or a hospital that has 4 cases of sickle cell anemia every week, and they have no treatment. We have an amazing treatment for this.
Do
That's
you?
one of the things we'd love to have money for, to do
Yes,
this
sickle cell
proper
is a
study.
huge problem. It's a huge,
Proper
huge.
study, yeah.
Oh.
Yeah, like in Africa, like 2 or 3% of the population has it.
And
And
in
I mean,
America,
you
America
can't
is huge.
imagine how horrible that is. You're
Yeah.
a parent and you have a baby, and that at some point it starts weeping and screaming because of horrific pains. You bring it to the hospital can't do much. If it lives through this episode, then a month later it might have another episode like that. And it continues like that. These kids usually don't grow older than like 18 years old.
So you have a treatment for sickle cell. That is a big, big issue in the United States with a large African population.
Yes.
Well, thank you for sharing that.
I've written to all the African or American organizations, offered them the protocol that we have. Not a single one replied.
They're used to government funding. The problem is they're used to getting their money from the government or large health agencies. Just be patient, Harry, because all that is breaking down. That is breaking down, and
Yeah.
people need alternatives, and that's why they've come to homeopathy, because they're not getting satisfaction from mainstream. or big
Yeah.
pharma. Just, I know, be patient. You've been patient for a very long time, but it
Yeah,
will
I've been
come.
doing this for many
I
years
trust
now.
that it will
Yeah.
come. I've seen it.
Yeah.
I've seen things happen in my lifetime that I never thought when I started homeopathy 35 years ago. I never thought I'd see it in my lifetime. And all of a sudden, I'm seeing changes in policy, government policy, and accepting practitioners, all kinds of things across the board. So you never know.
Yeah.
The truth of it
No,
is,
that's true. And I must say I'm very grateful for what we have achieved already. I
indeed, indeed.
Treating more than 1 million people a year is already quite something.
Absolutely, and effectively treating them. It's not just the numbers, that you're
Yeah.
effectively treating these diseases that have crippled Africa from the beginning of
Oh,
time.
yeah. Yeah. Like sickle cell anemia, huh? Like you mentioned, like I remember this one of the first cases we saw. This was a girl that went into the hospital like on a monthly basis.
Mhm.
And I mean, horrible for the parents to watch.
Yeah. A
It
horrible,
started using
horrible.
this remedy. It never had an episode again.
Oh, goodness.
Like, really? I mean,
Wow. That's
it's again one of those cases where I said, really?
wow. That's
Yeah.
fabulous. Wow,
So
that's
we'd love
fabulous.
to do a proper study with that, and we have a protocol ready and a couple of clinics willing to do it, and so we are now awaiting to find the funds to be able to do this study properly.
Well, may they
But
come your way soon. May they
yeah,
come.
we don't need it for ourselves. I mean, when you've cured a case and when you sit across a patient, you know. But the decision makers in this world don't see the patients. They see papers on their desks
And numbers. They see numbers.
and numbers. Yeah.
I met a lot of extraordinary missionaries from all different religions when I was in Africa. And I met nuns who made remedies from talcum powder because they couldn't get anything else to carry the remedy in. But people who had been doing service for 60 years, 65, 70 years of service with nothing but God's will and God's hand pushing them forward. I learned a lot about faith in Africa. It's also where I came to homeopathy. Oddly enough, oddly enough, it's where I found homeopathy. I met a young Israeli doctor, a vet, who was seconded to the African army, the Zairian army. I met him at a golf club, and my dogs had terrible problems with eczema and tumors in their ears, all kinds of things. He said, I can heal your dog in a week. I said, with what? I've been trying for years. And he came to the house and asked all kinds of silly questions like, does your dog pass gas after he eats? I thought, who is this guy? What is he talking about? And, and he gave me 3 tiny little pills. He said, give him one of these once a week. His chest was all crusty and bloody, and he had a horrible, he was such a difficult dog that when I tried to mate him, the females just walked away. I mean, he was really had a temper and very irritable. So it was Nux Vom. I gave him 1 pill a week. And after 3 weeks, his chest was like a baby's bottom. It was just, I said, what is this?
Mm.
And that was the beginning. In the middle of Africa, that's how I found homeopathy. And it changed my life, quite
That's
literally.
how homeopathy found you.
It found me. And
Yeah.
but to be able to alleviate the kind of suffering that exists in Africa is nothing short of a miracle, Harry. And I
Yeah,
bless you
definitely.
and your
Definitely.
organization. And I know you will find results. You will get
Can I,
what.
can I give you one more example of this?
Sure, sure. I love this.
So, like in the Congo, East Congo, and Rwanda made it in the news, but
Yeah,
in the East Congo, millions of people have died over the last couple of decades because it just continues and continues. But it's not only the death, it's huge numbers of people women that are being raped
yeah.
and children being born out of rape. And so at some point I was in Bukavu where there were many refugees, women refugees with their children living there. And so we treated some of those women for their traumas. And one of them, and it's one of the things that really showed to me the ability of mankind to heal from whatever happens, because they really improved. And one of them explained it in a way that showed to me, like, yeah, this is true for all of us. She said, I am no longer a slave of the past.
Mm.
And basically, we are all slaves of the past. Whatever happened in our past, somehow it creates our fear for the future, or it's things that we haven't totally resolved yet inside ourselves. I am no longer a slave of the past. This woman had lost her husband, who was killed in front of her, burned alive in the hut, raped by soldiers in front of her kids, her daughter being taken as a prostitute for the rebels, and she being mutilated after the rape as well. And she could say, I am no longer a slave of the past. That is like, that one case is enough worth a lifetime as a homeopath.
I agree. I agree. And everybody needs to hear that, because that is applicable to every person on this planet. We have got to change the paradigm now, not to be slaves. When you think of that level of trauma, doesn't even cover her experience, the shock, the loss.
Yeah, you can't imagine.
No, you can't imagine.
Can't imagine. And still, these women were able to heal. And to me, it also shows the potential of homeopathy to drop what we are not.
To drop what we are not.
And for me, the law of similars, as we call it, is just an expression of loving what is.
Yes.
Because once you love what is, doesn't mean that everything is okay, but you're no longer a slave of whatever is.
Slave to it. That's right.
And that's when, and that's the paradox. Once you love what is can change.
It's the only way it can change.
And as long as you fight what is, you're keeping it alive.
That's right. You're feeding it. You're feeding it. You're feeding it.
Yes.
We're lucky to hear you. We're lucky that you came and shared your experience and what you're doing with us, because it's very out of the box even for me. It's, I love hearing about miracles, and I really do. I'm a great believer in miracles, especially with this medicine. I've seen some magic as well. But that so many people are getting it all at once is a whole new concept, because we are trained to do individual work. And Peter's taking that idea of collectivity as a singularity, as a single organism, and treating it. It's amazing. I've had a lot of really good experiences with source medicine. I was teaching a class, I guess about 4 or 5 years ago, and somebody said, wouldn't it be nice if we could just get remedies on our telephones? And I said, well, you can. And they said, what do you mean you can? I said, well, you can. There's this amazing homeopath named Peter Chavel who, so I got in touch with Peter, and then I shared source medicine with them. I mean, their whole life changed. They all signed up for his classes, and everybody was on source medicine. And that's how it got started. Just somebody saying, I wish we could do it another way. And that's pretty much the basis of my work too, is finding another way. Harry, thank you so much.
I'd like to thank our guests today who've shared their experience, who have enhanced my life by developing skill sets and a vision of the world that is really expanded and I think beautiful. So thank you until the next podcast of Unscheduled Flights. Again, I'm your host, Ambika Waters, wishing you all the best.